Hi, boys and girls. This is Grandma Sheilla, and our story today is called I'm Going to Get You. Very scary title. Well, father and mother and their little daughter were at home, and they looked out their window, and there, sitting out in the snowy driveway, was a very rusted, old, beat-up car. And the door opened, and out jumped a man with a rifle in his hand. And he yelled, "I told you I'd be back to get you." So Mother went to the kitchen. She turned off the kitchen lights, and then the living room lights, and then the hall lights, till it was totally dark in their house. They could see out the window because the moon was shining on that snow. And that man had a long rifle that was glittering in the moonlight. Well, he went tromping toward the front of the house, and he said, "Let me in. You gotta let me in. I know you got drugs in there." Well, father, he went around to the back of the house, and their little daughter came close to the father, and she said, "What's he doing here, Father? Who is he?" And Father looked at her and he said, "It's Bill Greer. He was at our pharmacy this afternoon." Now, Father, he was a pharmacist and he ran his own pharmacy. And he said Mr. Greer had been there this afternoon and he wanted drugs. But he didn't have a prescription for any medicine, so the pharmacist couldn't give him anything. But he kept demanding. And his daughter looked at her father and said, "Well, why doesn't he go to the doctor and get a prescription then?" And Father said, "He has gone to the doctor's. But Mr. Greer isn't sick. He's addicted to medicines. He's taken them so long that the doctor won't give him any more because they know that he doesn't need them. He just wants them." Well, then they heard the man tromping around the side of the house to the back. And he was yelling again, "I know you have drugs in there. You let me in. I said I would get you, and I will." Well, Father, he turned to his daughter and he said, "Go up into your bedroom. Leave the lights off." And he turned to Mother and said, "Go get the gun." Well, Father had a rifle, but he only used it to scare the wolves off when they tried to come to their Minnesota home. He never used it to shoot at anybody. Well, just about that time, Mr. Greer aimed his gun at the back window of their house. And there was a big boom that echoed through the whole house. And the window was shattered. Well, the daughter hadn't gone all the way up to her bedroom like her father had told her to. She'd gotten partway there up the stairs, but she'd laid down and was peering through the banister to see what was going on. But when that gunshot came through the house, she threw herself down on the stairs and she covered her face. She was scared, very scared, and she thought, what if he shot my daddy? But she looked through the banisters into the kitchen, and Daddy was still standing there with that gun. And he had a big rip in his shirt, but there was no blood anywhere. And the little girl knew that Daddy was okay. He was just scared. Well, when that man had shot into their house, Father had said, "Go call the police." And Mother had gotten down by the telephone, and she dialed 911, and she told them that they needed police right away, and she told them what was going on. Well, while she had been on that telephone, Mr. Greer outside had shot right through their house, and the officers could hear it. They said, "We'll be right there." Well, Father was trying to think of what to do, so he got over close by that darkened, broken window, and he aimed his gun up at the sky. Well, Mr. Greer was still out there in the backyard, but Father didn't intend on hurting anybody. And when he got his gun right at the best angle for up at the sky, he shot, and a big boom went through the house as well. And they heard Mr. Greer running through the snow. "I'll get you if it takes all night." Well, then he heard in the distance the sound of police sirens, and he ran around the house and he got in his car and he started it up, and it just went vroom. And he spun around in the snow to go away down the driveway. But by the time he got turned around, 2 police cars came speeding down the driveway and parked like this, right behind where Mr. Greer was trying to get out of their driveway. They jumped out of their police cars with their guns, pointing at that car, and they went over and they arrested Mr. Greer. They put his hands in handcuffs, and they put him in the back of the police car, and they locked him in. Well, Father, he handed his gun to Mother and said, "Take care of this." And Father went out the front door to talk to the police officers. He told them about Mr. Greer's visit to the pharmacy and how he wanted drugs, but he had no prescriptions, so Daddy couldn't give them anything. And he told him how the man had threatened him and said he would come get him, and how he had shot through their kitchen window. Well, the officers listened, and Mr. Greer, he had drunk a whole bunch of alcohol, so he wasn't thinking straight. So the officers said, "We'll lock him up tonight, and we'll talk to him tomorrow and see what we need to do." Well, Father agreed that that was a good idea, and the officers drove away. Well, when Father came back in the house, his little girl rushed to him And Father had sat down in a chair. He was kind of shook up. But he stuck his arms out to his little girl, and she'd rushed and she jumped up in his lap. And Dad stood there holding her. And all of a sudden, the little daughter said, "He's a bad man. He needs to be locked up. He's awful." Well, Daddy, he looked at her and he said, "Bill isn't that bad of a man. He just has problems, and he doesn't know how to deal with them." "But Daddy, he shot at you. He could have killed you." "Yes," Daddy said. "But more than being locked up in jail, he needs Jesus." And then Father said, "I think we should pray for him." And Mother said, "I'll pray." So they bowed their heads, and Mother said, "Oh, dear Jesus, please be with Mr. Greer tonight. Thank you for protecting Daddy, and that nobody was hurt tonight. But we pray for Mr. Greer. He has problems with alcohol and drugs, and half the time he doesn't even know what he's doing. Please be with him. Help him to find you. And dear Jesus, we give him into your hands. He needs to know that, Jesus, you're the only one that can help him. We thank you because we know that you can help him. In Jesus' name, amen. After Mama had prayed, the daughter looked at her father and she said, "Why and how could you pray for somebody that's as awful as he is?" And Father, he looked at her and he said, "He needs Jesus more than he needs anything, and he just doesn't know it. Jesus can help him to be a good man." And she said, "But I don't understand." And Father said, I'm going to share with you exactly what he said. "I can't love him on my own, but with Jesus inside of me, I can love him." And still, the daughter seemed a little puzzled. But years later, she asked her father about that winter night, and he hardly even remembered it. But she remembered it well. And this is the lesson that she learned. What her father taught her that night was how to love her enemies. And we can't love our enemies, boys and girls, without the help of Jesus. And that's what any kind of enemy needs, is the help of Jesus to make them better. That's what we need, is Jesus inside of us to make us better people and to love our enemies. Thank you, boys and girls, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.